Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Padajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Jajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banacharya Natira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Padajana Ranjana Padajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banacharya Natira Banacharya. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So, we are reading from the Transcendental Diary. He sent me something here. We'll see if I can pull it up on the computer. See what we got here. We don't have the book somewhere, huh? This one here doesn't have it in it. Okay. Here we go. Chapter 3, Fiji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It had something in here about December 9th and then April 28th, but that all comes in one document, right? Is that true? All right, we'll see here. We'll keep reading and see what. So I read something and then I talk about it, or what? Okay. This is April 28th, 1976. We arrived in Fiji at 1:30 p.m. Present at the Nandi airport, Lotaka, to greet Srila Prabhupada with fresh, fragrant flowers of frangipani and marigolds were Upendra Das, Mr. Dauji Punya, and a small gathering of their friends. Mr. Punya is a respectable, humble, middle-aged man who had seriously taken up Krishna consciousness, observing all the regulative principles, and chanting the Maha Mantra every day. After seeing Srila Prabhupada's success in spreading Krishna consciousness in Australia, he was inspired to build an ISKCON temple here. Descended from Gujarati immigrants, his family is prominent in the area and have extensive retail interests. Now he is personally raising funds to build a beautiful temple. Prabhupada has recommended they install the deities of Kaliya Krishna. He explained that Fiji was the island where the serpent Kaliya lived after Garuda drove him from his home. Later he went to India, where he polluted the entire Yamuna River, causing Lord Krishna to chastise him. After this, Kaliya returned to Fiji. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said there is no snakes in Fiji because Kaliya ate them. Mr. Punja informed us that according to a century-old local legend, there is a gigantic many-hood snake said to be living in a cave in the interior of the island. The temple is to be built here in Latoka. It will have 3 large domes following the same basic design as ISKCON Vrindavan, but on a smaller scale. It will be first custom-built ISKCON temple outside of India. Mr. Punya drove us to his brother's house where we quickly settled in, installing Srila Prabhupada's dictaphone and other paraphernalia. How does this go down? For its daytime use, Srila Prabhupada sat on the couch in the living room, and the whole Punya family gathered around. With great respect, they bathed Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. With scented warm water. The house had been vacated, allowing Prabhupada and his full party to use. It's not big, only a few rooms, so Guru Kripa Maharaj and I are sleeping on the wide veranda that encircles it. I don't know how to make this go down. Oh, I have to do it from... Okay. What do you do from, how do you do it? Just push it from here? Oh, from, okay, good. Okay. Mr. Punya drove us to his brother's house where we quickly settled in. We read that. Prabhupada likes Fiji's tropical climate very much, and the island seems largely unspoiled, with few trappings of tourism and a little of the garnish advertising, so typical of holiday resorts. There is no television station, and much of the natural beauty of the island is preserved. On the way home, I noted many large, heavily laden mango trees. Although this is not quite the season yet, Prabhupada did comment favorably, however, as he had done in Gujarat last December on the occasion in their agriculture on just one cash crop, in this case, sugarcane. No, he commented unfavorably one cash crop of the sugarcane. This is an interesting point, that Prabhupada brought up in Mauritius. They were doing the same thing, is that they were growing sugarcane only, and they would export the sugarcane, and they would import their food. But the farther the food supply comes from, the more you're setting yourself up in case there's any kind of shortage or disaster or transportation problem. If it comes from thousands of miles away, or if it has to come by ship, if there's storms or an interruption in shipping, or if they get their grain from Ukraine and then Ukraine is being stopped by Russia to send the grain out, then they're going to be in trouble. This is why you see in Vrindavan, Prabhupada is showing this sustainable living, is that if you grow your own food, the food grown closer to home has more of the nutrients you need. If it's grown right here or 10 miles away, the closer to home, the better it is. So if it comes from Ukraine, it's great for Ukrainians, but they can also just go get it. But if it has to come a long distance, the supply chain can be interrupted. Now, so many of the supplies come from different places. So Prabhupada convinced them in Mauritius that they shouldn't grow just one cash crop. You're an island that if there's any interruption, people will starve here. So they started growing other food. See, in Vrindavan, if there was some kind of world disaster, you would think the civilized societies would do well, but they're far away from the food supply. What people do in the Vrindavan area, the farmers, is they'll keep a big container of rice, a big container of dal, and a big container of wheat. And it doesn't go bad until you actually cook it. So this is much more sustainable because you have a food supply that's available in the future if you need it. And if people eat perishable things like meat that has to come from a long ways away, you're not only killing animals, but look at how inefficient it is. They have to grow 20 kilos of grain to get 1 kilo of beef. Then the animal has to be transported to a place to slaughter it. Then after it's killed, it has to be cut up and taken to places, and it goes bad very quickly, unless it's in the deep storage. And it's not good for health, and of course killing the animals is not good, and we don't offer it to Krishna. So it's the wrong food supply in all manners. It's funny, some people hate all business, and some people hated Microsoft, what's Bill Gates, but he said that the best diet for human society is a vegetarian diet because it's not only healthy, but it uses less resources. When it comes to water, it takes 7 gallons of water to make a pound of tomatoes, 35 to make a pound of cauliflowers, and 1,800 to make a pound of beef. 50 times as much as the cauliflower and 300 times as much as the tomato. So places with a water shortage, they shouldn't be using beef as a food. And why would you take 10 kilos of grain to get 20 kilos of grain to get 1 kilo of the beef? Why not just use the 20 kilos of grain? The animals don't have to eat grain if they don't need to be fattened up. And when they eat the grain, they let out the methane gas. When they eat grass, they don't let out the methane gas. So did Krishna put the cows in a feedlot and give them grain, or did he take them out to eat the grass? Put them in a feedlot, right? Was that it? We read the stories about when Krishna went with the cowherd boys and they would just stick the cows where the feed was and they would eat the feed. Was that it? No, they went out to eat the grass because this is the proper food. The chlorophyll in the grass helps them digest the things and they don't make this methane gas go out. So, if it was good enough for Krishna, it should be good enough for us. And so Prabhupada didn't like this idea of the one crop because if you're growing the food you need, you're being self-sufficient. If it has to come from far away, something goes wrong and you're in big trouble. So the closer to home, the better. So Prabhupada wanted us to have self-sufficient communities. And somehow in South Africa, we haven't gotten much behind farming. People aren't interested, and it's dangerous and things. But without food, what can you eat? Oh, you can have a factory that makes nuts and bolts, and you eat nuts and bolts. Oh, there's a one kind of granola called nuts and bolts. But do they make those in the factory? No, the nuts are like the cashews and the bolts are like the oats. And they have to be grown somewhere. So Prabhupada knew that this was ultimately not practical. On April 29th, with a few visitors, the day was quiet, and Prabhupada had been able to relax. Fiji appears quite paradisial, meaning like a paradise, but it is not perfect. Srila Prabhupada was disturbed by a constant night-long howling emanating from what seemed to be a multitude of dogs. It started off in one quarter of the town, flowed like a cacophonous wave around the entire district, and this prevented Prabhupada from translating. Pushta Krishna and Guru Kripa had a meeting with Mr. Punja to discuss the programs he had proposed for the next few days. Despite his objections, they put pressure on him to cancel some involving travel to other parts of the island and to minimize most of the others, in the hope that Srila Prabhupada can translate and rest instead. But their coercive tactics disturbed Mr. Punja, and with encouragement from myself, he went to see Prabhupada for a final decision. Prabhupada became angry and immediately called for his secretary and GBC. Pushta explained that they were only trying to avoid inconveniencing Prabhupada, but Srila Prabhupada corrected him. For someone my age, the inconvenience is there simply in traveling. But if I have accepted that willingly for the sake of preaching, now we are here for the benefit of the local men. We are in their hands, so now you make arrangements for whatever programs Dauji wants. We shall stay as long as required. It was a valuable lesson for Srila Prabhupada's new secretary. This is one of the main difficulties of being part of his personal team. And Pushta Krishna Swami is now beginning to understand that Prabhupada's servants are here to assist him. We are here to see to his personal requirements and make life as easy as possible so he can concentrate on his real business of spreading Krishna consciousness, especially his book writing. Yet at the same time, assisting Srila Prabhupada means having to make arrangements that we know bring personal inconvenience and even disruptions to his health. It is easy then to get caught in seeing the contradictions, but Srila Prabhupada's preaching strategy means that consideration of personal comfort and convenience is secondary. It is the secretary's business to understand and serve his desire to preach, not only our own conception of providing protective relief. I noticed this, how things become more difficult once I crossed the 70-year-old age mark. Especially last year, my health was struggling here because I went from India to America, and they did a treatment where they had to burn out the bad stuff on my esophagus, and then I immediately flew to South Africa. And going from India to America is a lot farther than going from South Africa to India. It's a lot farther, maybe like more than twice as far. And but coming from Los Angeles to South Africa is even farther than going from India to America. So I did two trips of 2 long flights, so 4 long flights, back to back. I got here, I was wiped out, and there wasn't much happening in Johannesburg. They closed down there. I thought, why did I come all the way here? And what's amazing that Srila Prabhupada, it's a big work to do translating. When age is higher, it's a big job to travel. But Prabhupada not only traveled, and he spent so much time translating books, but he wanted to preach in the areas. He traveled to so many places. When I say he went around the world, it wasn't just like a trip. It wasn't like going from Delhi to Los Angeles and back to Delhi. That's around the world. But Prabhupada would go to the different places. Like if he went to say he'd come from America to Hawaii, and then to Fiji, and then to Australia, and then up to India, and then maybe to somewhere like Dubai, and then to Nairobi, and then to London, and then to France, and then to Norway, and then he'd go to New York, and then he'd go to Chicago and a few other cities, and then maybe down to South America, and then back up to LA. And so the trip around the world was not just, he stopped lots of places on those ways. And it's amazing to think at advanced age, he was able to translate so many books, manage the society, and do so much preaching. It's impossible for us to see how we can do this, but it inspires us to try to do something special. That's why I knew when Prabhupada sent me here and the Swami left me alone, I had to do the needful. It's like Swarup Damodar was saying yesterday, that I asked him, sometimes things just don't work out. He says, yes, you just have to do the best and accept that certain things don't work out, and you move on. And that's what it takes to be a leader, because these things are frustrated. You become attached in Krishna's service to getting certain things accomplished, and if it doesn't come through, you can become frustrated, or you can just go on to the next thing. And you find in Krishna consciousness there's a few people doing so much, but everybody can do something. Like when they go on books, what's good is if you go in teams, because if you go in teams, they're happy now that you just go out and try and do a few books. You can go in the teams where there's somebody that's a veteran, someone who's done it for a good amount of time, and someone who's new, and they're more comfortable. They used to take the ideas, they take someone with a box of books, expect them to collect about, maybe 5,000 rand, and drop them off. And as Guru Kripa Swami used to say, pick it to the bone or don't come home. You have to do the pick and get so much money. They're getting the equivalent of 5,000 rand in the 70s in places like Japan, where they really had to go after people for money. So now they don't expect as much, and you don't have to collect a huge amount. You just have to get some money for the book cost. They don't drop you off in some obscure corner and expect you to do 5,000 rand. That might be difficult, right? If you've never done it before, we drop you with a box of mixed books. It's funny, when we used to do Sankirtan, we went to, I dropped people at the different malls to do it. And we didn't have cell phones then, so they would have to have one spot was their first spot. And if you got thrown out, there's a second spot. And if you got thrown out of there, there's a third spot. So then I'd have to go look for them when I'd go pick them up. If they weren't the first spot, then the second, then the third. But there's, if they got lost, they could call the temple, and I could try the temple from a payphone. But it wasn't like now that they could call you and you could call them. It was a different age. And people would get dropped off all day to do this. And like in Laguna Beach, we'd get $6,000 worth of books. And the goal was to collect 13,000, 6,000 to pay the debt for the books, 1,000 for the Sankirtan expenses, and 6,000 to run the temple. We had to run the temple off the books. And today, it's not there. We don't have to collect as much. So we think if Prabhupada spent so much time, they set up the translating. He'd been traveling. He's in a tropical place. Isn't that time to relax? Do people go to Fiji and set up the dictaphone, or do they set up a towel on the beach? Sunbathing, right? Because it's the tropics. In those places too, where it's like in Singapore, it's 35 degrees in the summer, and it's only 33 degrees in the winter. So it's not much of a change. There's places that can go down to 5 degrees and places that can go up to 50 degrees. But they're fairly warm, mildly hot, but since it's all the time, that people get used to it. So going there, you would think that someone would You get an urgency when you have like certain places in America, like in Texas, you can have winters that are 20 degrees below zero, and you can have summers that get up to 40, 45, and it's a big change. If it's somewhere like 30 to 35 all year long, you don't notice much of a change. So in those places, there isn't an urgency because you don't go from these intense seasons where you have a hot summer, then the fall comes and all the leaves turn orange and brown and yellow, and then the winter comes where there's snow and it's really intense, and then the spring it starts to get better and the summer it gets hot. So there's this urgency with all the changes going on. But in the tropics, you don't feel this. We're not quite in the tropics. Up by Nairobi, you get that. Maybe more in Mauritius. I don't think they're interested in working too hard there. Singapore, they make them work hard. But because there isn't much change. But Prabhupada wanted to do all the preaching, and he set up the dictaphone to do the translating too and the managing. How is it possible to do all this? Okay, so since there is no temple, this is April 30th, we have no set program, but there is still plenty of opportunity to hear Srila Prabhupada speak. He is always happy to sit and talk with us, offering revealing insights into preaching strategy meant for saving others, and simultaneously giving us a deeper appreciation of our relationship with him. Today he was talking about the Bhagavad Gita and the duty of the spiritual master, which he described as how to benefit the disciple. Prabhupada told us that because Arjuna offered himself as a disciple, Krishna chastised him. You rascal, you are talking like a very learned man, but you are on the platform of bodily conception of life, the platform of the animals. Quoting one of his favorite verses, Yas Matma Buddhir Shunape Tri Tuke, Prabhupada said, anyone who accepts his body as a self is not even a human being. So the whole world is on this bodily concept of life. Prabhupada told us this is going on. American, European, Hindu, Muslim, black, white, this and that. They do not know what is education. This is the first education, that you rascal, you are not this body. You are within this body. So who understands this? And they are declaring that. We are student of Bhagavad Gita. We find that, when Prabhupada came here, he says, what is this nonsense, black, white? And during that time, you could get in big trouble in apartheid. They arrested me and said, you're not allowed to mix with different races. I said, well, our philosophy is that we're the soul inside, that we're not black or white or Mexican or Indian or Japanese or whatever. You don't have many people of Mexican or Japanese descent here, and probably very few of mixed Japanese-Mexican descent. I don't think they even get together very often when there's lots of them, but certainly you don't have much of them here. But this is the whole idea of spiritual life. We're not supposed to be having this bodily identification. That when we think we're the body, then we think we have to please the body and serve it. And when we know the body is just a covering, just like with the clothing, we take it off and put it on new clothing. Krishna mentions this in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that just as the person takes off old clothing and puts on new clothing, so the soul discards the old body and puts on a new one. So this bodily designation is the first thing we have to get out of. But it's a process. He said that although Gandhi had his photograph taken with Bhagavad Gita, he was fighting for nationalism. But in Pakistan, they are also doing the same thing. So what was his credit as a student of the Gita? Nobody has learned the real message of Bhagavad Gita, that the soul is different from the body. It is the first time we are teaching Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada said. Otherwise, everyone is misled. Krishna informed him that generally people don't come to hear our philosophy, but they simply like the prasadam. So you have not come, Prabhupada said, but you have come to take prasadam. It has got connection with Krishna. So therefore we welcome you, that at least for eating you are coming to Krishna. Gradually you'll understand Krishna by eating only. Krishna is not so easy to be understood, but we are giving you facility to eat Krishna prasadam, so that one day you can understand this movement. This is the policy. We are not poor feeding. This is not our philosophy. We are giving you prasadam, and that is fact, that by eating, you will one day become Krishna conscious, simply by eating. Because you are so dull, you cannot understand the philosophy. You know the belly like the animals, so therefore we are giving facility. All right, fill up your belly, and you'll be infected as you take food stuff from an infected area. You become infected with some disease. So this is Krishna infected prasadam. You take it and one day you'll be diseased with Krishna consciousness. That is a fact. Some way or other, let him come in contact with Krishna. He'll be benefited. Some way or other, let him come to the light. May be dim lit or very big. Light is light. So anyone understands that there is a soul which is conducting the business of this body, then he can very easily understand that there is a super soul who is conducting the business of the whole material manifested world. If you convince someone that the body is useless, a lump of matter only, but the soul is a prime factor, similarly, he will very easily understand that there is a huge, gigantic material body of earth, water, fire, and air, and that we are working so wonderfully on account of the super soul. So this is some way or other. This is a preaching strategy that Prabhupada says. As I was saying before, you go to some churches or different religious groups, and some of them are very oriented just for the people who come from that. Some of them it's a bodily designation or a family group that they belong to that religion. And other places, they talk to you for 5 minutes and expect you to join. But our strategy, like Prabhupada says, we go in like a needle, out like a plow. We have to set a purpose when we go to preach. Like if someone comes from the first time, we set the bar low. We don't try to convince them of the whole philosophy. What we try to do is make them feel good about being here and make the goal that they want to come back again next week. Because if you accomplish that, as like Jai Pataka says in the Bhakti Vriksha groups, the people want to know how much you care before they care how much you know. Imagine if I say, I've been reading things in Bhagavad Gita, and maybe I can help you find some things in there that'll help you through your dilemma. Or if I say, you're just an idiot, I've been practicing this over 50 years, you need to shut your mouth and open your ears and listen to what I have to say, because I know what's right and you don't. Even if it's true, it doesn't come out well. People want to know that you care about them. They don't want you to try to prove how great you are. That doesn't impress people. But if you let them know you care, and you're trying to find something in the knowledge that will help them, that's how Prabhupada impressed us. He was very concerned with all of our welfare. We see that. He's traveling, and he's still doing translation, but he still wants to do so many programs. It's amazing, isn't it? It doesn't even seem possible. He described our bodies as small universes. Without our presence within it, he said, the body cannot function. So why do we think the greater universe is going on automatically? He used one of his favorite examples, that of the 747 jumbo jet. As a comparison, without a pilot, it is useless. Therefore, the pilot is important, not the machine. The new temple's cost is calculated at Fijian dollars 140,000. All the funds will be raised from the local population by a life membership program. The Punja family has given $25,000 outright for the project, and Dauji has personally canvassed the area with Upendra and signed up over 125 life members at the rate of $333 each. So 125 life members at $333 each. That's about $41,000, isn't it? 41 2/3 maybe. Prabhupada is extremely pleased with his efforts and is keen to encourage him in any way possible. Just over 50% of the population is of Indian origin, mainly Gujarati. Srila Prabhupada uses very good prospects here for spreading Krishna consciousness. You know, Krishna has planted so many Indians in different places in the world. You know, here there's how many Indians in South Africa? Maybe a little over a million and a quarter. But it's still only about 2%, right? In Nairobi, there's 100,000 in the country of Kenya. And actually in Dubai, there's more Indians than there are Arabs, even though it's an Arab country. And in Trinidad, off of South America, and Guyana, there's many Indians. And there's Indians in Burma, and even in Thailand. And but in Fiji, a little over half of the population is Indians. The local people are less. I think it's just about the same. In Trinidad, maybe the locals are a little bit more. But that's amazing that over half of the population is of Indian origin. Next year, May 1st, 1976. We 3 disciples gathered in Srila Prabhupada's room this morning. Led by Guru Kripa Maharaj, we sang the Guru Astika prayers as Srila Prabhupada sat behind his desk. After a few verses, Srila Prabhupada interrupted to tell him that he was mispronouncing the refrain, Vande Goroshi Charanat Avindam. It is Guru, not Goro. Prabhupada told him, Go means cow. The spiritual master is not a cow. Yes, someone told him in Mumbai, he says, you know, you better tell the one American to quit chanting Sri Gauro Charana Padma, because the Gauro is a cow and Charana is a quarter of a rupee. So you're saying cows 25 pies, right? You're singing cows 5 rupees, cows 5 rupees. People are going to start looking for where these 5 rupee cows are. So they have to be careful in the pronunciation that is correct. It was the one that's Sri Gaura. Yes, Sri Guru Charan De Guru. You know what's funny is many of the Westerners chant some of the mantras better than, probably not in South Africa. It's more they're learning it for the first time. But people who've come from Indian families and speak Hindi well, they hear the prayer. What is the second prayer to Srila Prabhupada? Namaste what? Say it. What is it? Is it Saraswati or Sarasvati? It's Sarasvati. But maybe, Saraswati, the goddess of learning. So they sing, Namaste Saraswati Devi. Was that a mantra? It was. It's the mantra to Bhaktisiddhanta. But if you're singing to Prabhupada, then you don't sing the mantra to Bhaktisiddhanta, right? You have to understand it. So the Western people who heard it for the first time, they go, Namaste Saraswati. Whereas many people in India sing it, Namaste Saraswati Devi. And I think here people seem to get it right because they learn it for the first time. So quite often it's better to learn something fresh. It's like the music teacher tells us, how much does it cost to teach someone to play the violin? He says, well, it costs 10,000 rand if you've never played before, and 20,000 Rand if you've already played. Why is that? Is because you have to unlearn all the things you learned wrong. So we find that this is why Prabhupada has us, he translated books and has a distribution of books, because many people in India study books and understand the real knowledge. Other people just pass down speculation and ideas that aren't really correct. You hear so many things that different Indian people say. Some of them really know it. But you find a Westerner or an African who has received Prabhupada's books will know more about the transcendental philosophy than an Indian who's just heard many speculations. Especially because if you think you know where it is, if I think the Chatsworth Mall is this way, I'm going to have a harder time finding it than someone who says, I'm not sure where the Checkers Market is. Can you show me where it is? If I'm sure it's this way, then I go the wrong direction. So this is why we distribute these literatures, because the proper knowledge is there. You go to an average Hindu temple, they just have deities on display, and people figure they pray to them to ask them favors. But Prabhupada's teaching bhakti, where we ask Krishna what we can do for him. We don't come to Krishna with a list of favors we need fulfilled, as if God has nothing better to do than to sit around waiting on us to pray to him with instructions. And then we're upset that God didn't finish the last list. A program arranged at a local school was disappointingly ill-attended, for only about 30 adults came, some Indian and some native Fijian. But Prabhupada was undaunted and spoke with the same strength and conviction as he does, completely unattached and transcendental to material concepts of profit and loss, success and failure. We have to do that. We have to do the best in each circumstance. Distributing books here is not going to be as easy as places where you can knock on any door and there's no crime, and where the minimum wage is maybe 400 or 500 rupees an hour. It's like the Swiss people can buy a big book or Maha big book just with some pocket change. If they're making 500 rupees an hour, that means, and that's the lowest wage, that means they're getting 100 rupees every 12 minutes. So for them to, rand. We're talking rand, 500 rand. Imagine if what is the minimum wage here per hour? If they work at the shop, right, what is the wage? Someone must know. What do they pay people? Gopalraj must know. What is the low wage here? What is the least they're allowed to pay people? What is it? 24 rand. Okay, so it's like $1.20. 24 rand. So if you're making 24 rand instead of 500 rand, it's a lot harder to buy a set of books, isn't it? Is it true? But you notice those countries where the low wage is 400 or 500 rand, they don't have crime there because the people make enough money to support themselves. It's not very easy to support yourself. Let's call it 25 rand because that's easier to calculate. If you make 25 rand an hour and you work 40 hours in a week, you're going to make 1,000 rand a week or 50,000 rand a year. That doesn't really carry real far. What does a car cost here? You have to calculate back to the hour. If somebody makes $10 million a month, to them they don't care if gas is a penny a liter or 50 rand a liter, because they have so much money it doesn't really matter to them. So it's harder, but if you distribute books, then it means people appreciate them if they can just give a small amount. And there's crime, so you can't go to certain areas. You can't stay out at late, the wages are low, and it isn't a big reading country. Some European countries like Russia, people love to read there. You go to a store to buy something and they're reading a page of a book, they may wait to sell to you. I don't see that here. It's not a big reading country. So any success you have is a good success. We have to not be discouraged when a small crowd comes. We have to try for the big crowd, but if the small one comes, then we're happy. There are not many engagements or visitors. So Srila Prabhupada often calls in the sannyasis or whoever else is around to discuss Krishna conscious philosophy with them. Always enlivened to preach and encourages disciples to preach. He needs no prompting to speak. He simply rings his bell, and when someone comes, he sits with them and begins to speak on Bhagavad Gita. His favorite topics are modern science and the all-pseudo-spiritual cheating process. He has us look up various verses in the Gita and read them out, often along with his purports. And then he elaborates the philosophical points by relating them to practical examples. Prabhupada just doesn't know the highest philosophical concepts. He knows the application. And this is what makes him such an effective preacher. He convinces us because he relates everything to situations within our daily experience. Discussing the position of the soul, this is a good point here. Prabhupada, when he came to America, that he checked out what the American people were doing. And he knows that in some places in India, many of the ashrams don't have women involved. Only men are there. And women don't get to do any of like a deity service. But Prabhupada realized that in the West, if you don't include the women too, that the men and women do things together, you can't just exclude them and expect to start a movement there. And after all, if the philosophy is we're not this body, aren't we more concerned with who's qualified? You know, sometimes people think they're men or they're Indians and they're more qualified. It's like in Melville where Sarvyasachi is, and Manu Kanya is there. She was in Belgium, and they're saying, now what place are you from and what made you take to this? And then when they said something about the Bhakti Shastri, he says, yeah, I got the Bhakti Shastri. He said, you got the Bhakti Shastri? Yes. Well, why not? It doesn't matter if it's an African and it's a woman. Did they get the Bhakti Shastri? Did they get Brahminical initiation? Do they know how to do things? You tend to think you're born in a certain country and you just automatically know those things. It's like the children over here were practicing the African dance, right? But if someone comes here from America and learns it, they may become better than the other people, yes? If they've taken the time to learn it. So that's what we are teaching here, is that many times in India, the people think, well, if they're born in a Brahmin family, they don't have to be even qualified. It's just like if you're born in that family, that's all that counts, and no one else is qualified. So now what you're doing is someone else may come from a non-Brahmin family. They may be white or African, and they may be qualified, but because they're not born in the right family, we don't give them an opportunity. But if you're born in the right family, you don't have to become qualified. It's just like if we take the people who are doctors and say that only their children are qualified to become doctors, and none of them have to go to medical school. And then a bunch of other people, whites and Africans, have gone to medical school, but they weren't born in the Indian medical family, so they're not allowed to practice, whereas the other people are. Would you have good medicine? Isn't the training and the qualifications? Krishna says that someone's abilities, it's guna karma vibhakashaha, according to qualities and their actions. So if you qualify people just by birth who may be unqualified, and you don't let people perform the activities who are qualified just because they're born in the quote-unquote wrong family, then you're making unqualified people do the preaching, and qualified people are not given the chance. So this is something we don't do. We don't care what body they're in. Did they become qualified? Did they know it? If they learned the Bhakti Shastri, it doesn't matter if they're an African woman. If they've learned it, they know it better than an Indian man who didn't learn it. Now, of course, being an Indian, the opportunity should be there, but does it mean everybody takes that opportunity? It doesn't mean that. They don't. Many of them do, of course, but the idea is it's more important if you take the opportunity. He read out the verse, living entities in this conditional world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditional life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. He gave a simple, effective comparison. So with this instrument, he's manipulating this machine as exactly the pilot with so many electronics machine. He's working the flying of the plane. Where is the difficulty to understand? The body is a machine. Brahmayavan sarva bhutani. The aeroplane is wandering. This machine is wandering. Urdavam gata sadgaha. Sometimes up, sometimes down. Find out this. Guru Kripa flicked through the pages of the Gita as Srila Prabhupada continued with a demonstration of his example. Same airplane going up and down, two wings, this hand like this. Guru Kripa read the verse aloud. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on earthly planets. And those in the mode of ignorance go to hellish planets. So the same thing Srila Prabhupada explained. If the pilot is not expert, then he goes down to the lowest finished. Ado gachati tamasaha. If the pilot is third class, instead of going up, he goes down and everything is spoiled. So everything on the pilot, the machine is not important. The machine can go up if the pilot knows how to do it. And the machine can go down. Actually, it is happening. The landing point is very dangerous. If a pilot cannot handle very nicely, immediately smashed. All crises take place while coming down and going up. I have seen sometimes they clap. As soon as Prabhupada clapping his hands, grinning and raising his eyebrows, as if in relief, making us laugh. Oh, the danger is over. In this way, he said, we have to place the subject matter with the living entity. The soul is the important thing with the body. On account of his ignorance, he is struggling. This is his position. He's saying with the pilot here, it's the going up and the coming down. Once the plane takes off, you're pretty much safe. But he's saying the pilot can make it go up and down. And let's compare the average airline pilots to the average driver. Do they just run out down the runway when it's not their time and without signaling take off? Or do they follow all the rules and do it totally properly? This is why there's many more car accidents than there are plane accidents. Not only is the equipment better, but the pilot is more qualified. He's a real professional in how to make this done safely. Whereas everybody driving is not that way. It looks like so many people aren't concerned with impressing others of how nicely they know how to drive safely. Is it true? The more it's impressing that they can just drive how they want, and they look ridiculous to other people, don't they, when they don't know how to turn the corner properly and they don't use the signal? It looks like they are mentally challenged because they didn't use the signal. When they're turning left, you use one signal, turning right, another. The plane follows all these signals. So the same way, if we're going to get somewhere properly, we have to know how to go up and how to go down. Know what things are in the mode of goodness, what things are in the mode of passion, what things are in the mode of ignorance. Because if we do the ignorant things, we're going to go down. And they can't say, as like one politician was saying, well, it's different when good people do bad things. It's different than when bad people do bad things. It's just like if bad people drink alcohol, they get drunk. Now, if I'm a good person and I drink a whole bottle of alcohol, it's not the same for me, right? Is that true? Or would I get drunk also? Right? You will. And so they have that saying, pretty is as pretty does. People's beauty is judged by what they do. So you can't say I'm a high-class spiritual person. The one person who was a laundryman in Vrindavan, his name was Manju. I said, Manju, you're going to kill yourself with your drinking of alcohol. He says, but I'm a very good man. I said, you might be, but it's still going to kill you. It doesn't seem to matter if you're a good man and you take to the mode of ignorance. and drink large quantities of alcohol. He must have drank large quantities because he died of liver failure at 44. And especially in a place like Vrindavan where everything's intense and it's not socially acceptable, whatever people do there becomes magnified. So if they're going to drink, they're going to drink a lot. It's not the kind of place where people sip on one. If they're going to drink, they're passed out. So, we're as pretty and as good as we are by what we do, not by what we say. And that's why it's important to follow that and be like the pilot that knows how to do it correctly. He said, since the body is temporary and one must die one way or another, learned persons do not lament over it. But still, he said there was something to lament. Lamentation is that the person within the body, whether he's going to heaven or hell, that is real concern. Body will be finished today or tomorrow. Who can protect it? But one should be interested in the owner of the body, where he's going. And this is the next position. There are 3 statuses, up, down, and the same. So we'll end there. But that shows that, we may have in life, we may have some health concerns, we may have some financial concerns, we may have some items that we need to take care of, but we have to remember that the most important thing is, did we become Krishna conscious? If we're becoming Krishna conscious, even if certain other things don't work out, and even if our health isn't perfect, if we take care of the most important thing, our life will be successful, even if there's other kinds of failures that may bother us. And so that behooves us to put our Krishna consciousness first, like Prabhupada taught us. And then what happens, if we put Krishna first, everything else becomes first class. So are there any questions or comments? Yes. Is there a microphone there? Dinabandhu always calls it Bhakta mic. Microphone? Oh, here it comes.
Thank you so much, Kshudi Prabhu. I just really admire how your presentation of Krishna consciousness is so much like how Srila Prabhupada presented Krishna consciousness, in the way that you're able to bring such a high philosophy across in a way that's relevant to our time and place now. And I just really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have to make it practical. It's like they said, the salesman was telling the customer that this toaster comes in 18 different colors. It heats up to, 200 degrees Celsius, and it has a cord that's 2 meters long. The person says, yes, but does it toast? So you explain all the main things except the thing that's important. We have to explain how this works for people and put it in terms that they can understand. It's like Bhaktisiddhanta's terms were difficult, and it's difficult because some of these things are very advanced. It's funny, like someone asked me, can you explain how Krishna changed into all the cows and cowherd boys? I said, no, that's more than I can explain. Now, who did Krishna explain that to that would understand it? Anyone know that story? Who did Krishna explain how he expanded into cows and calves? Who? No. Before Lord Brahma came back, someone noticed, and Krishna explained to him. Someone who is more qualified than the rest. Who would that be? This is something you get with hints. More qualified than Lord Brahma. Balaram, yes. Balaram can understand things we can't. And so someone asked Einstein, he said, can you explain the theory of relativity? He says, yes, but not in such a way that you can understand it. So just because something is beyond our understanding does not mean it's not possible. It just means we don't understand it. So there's a lot going on, like how Krishna puts together the universe, and things we would conclude don't necessarily come true. So we don't explain that part. We try to explain how it works. Yes? All glories to Srila Prabhupada.